Welcome back, everybody, to DigCit Week. It is 10 years this year of Digital Citizenship Week. Today, we are kicking off the week with some great digital citizenship conversations here at Keep Indiana Learning in collaboration with Common Sense Education. And we want to remind you that if you are sharing your DigCit Week posts, please use the hashtag DigCitWeek and hashtag DigCit wins, because we're talking about the ways that we are winning this week, this year, and this decade at digital citizenship. I am so happy to be here with Jen Stewart. She is one of our Keep Indiana Learning digital learning coaches. She's also an amazing STEM teacher, and we are so thrilled to have her think about what we might need in the future 10 years from digital citizenship. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jen.
All right, so we're going to look at the next 10 years as far as digital citizenship and computing goes. So I am a intermediate STEM teacher. I teach 4th through 6th grade at Maxwell Intermediate School. That's part of Greenfield Central Schools. And I am excited to be here and share some ideas that I have about digital citizenship and what's coming up for us in the future. So in January of 2022, Forbes magazine presented their top 10 trends that will transform our world in the next 10 years. And not only is this apply for the real world, obviously, but for schools as well. And when we look at really the first 7, those not apply just, like I said, to the world and the business world, but to our students as well. And how we can, and we need to think as teachers about how we can prepare our students and our families for these things that are going to be happening. The first being ubiquitous computing, which is that it's going to be everywhere. We think that computing is already everywhere, but we're not even to that point yet. Computers are getting smaller and smaller. And so that means that the computers are going to become more pervasive than they already are. And then again, continuing with connected and smart everything. It might not seem like it, but there are more devices and things that can be connected. Washers, dryers, refrigerators, our cars, even more things into the future. And with that comes the datafication of our world. All of those devices, everything that we have hooked up to the Internet of Things are going to supply data. And what happens to that data? And how can we help our students deal with that data? And then AI, things that we just saw in movies and thought about as the future. Well, the future is now, and will be improving and growing as we get through the next 10 years. And then XR, we had AR, and then these other things. Now we have extended reality, where it's blurring the lines between reality and computer reality. It used to be just for games, but now we're able to see, what does that new sofa look like in our living room? The kids, what does that shirt look like on, or can I try that makeup on? And it's blurring the lines as far as the line between computing world and real world. And then digital trust. Talked about that datafication. How can we trust that our data is being taken care of? And then 3D printing, which we do like on a small scale in some of our classrooms. But then what is the future and how will that affect our students? The other things, as far as gene editing and nanotechnology and some of those things, they'll affect us long term, but not so much for our students. So what does that mean as far as digital citizenship for us and for our students? And so that's what we kind of want to take a look at now. And we talk about digital citizenship, but I found this quote in an article, and I really think this applies. It's not just digital citizenship, it's just citizenship, period. Because we talk about how computers have become so pervasive and all of our lives are connected, this Internet of Things, everything in our life is connected to computers and all this data is connected. Everybody's got a computer in their hand, in their pocket, in their backpack, in their car. Um, it's become our world. So it's not just a digital, there's not that line between digital citizenship and regular citizenship. It's just citizenship. And so that's what's going to become more important as the next 10 years come. So the first thing I want to talk about is don't assume anything. And I have a couple memes that I want to share, just that we kind of laugh about. But we think about this says, you mean I actually expected to check Google Classroom for homework assignments when I stay home from school? What is Google Classroom again? We think that because our students have had this technology in our hands, now most of them have had iPhones and iPads pretty much since they were born. And when they entered kindergarten, a lot of our schools have been one-to-one. We think that because they've had video games and cell phones and smart TVs, that they know how to use it all. And we really shouldn't assume that. Just because they can make a TikTok video does not really mean that they know how to turn their assignment in Google Classroom. So we can't make those assumptions, just like we can't assume that they're going to be able to find the turn in button on Google Classroom, because we all know as teachers that sometimes that's like the hardest thing. So we can't make those assumptions that they're going to be able to know these things without us teaching them. We can't make the assumption that they're going to be a good digital citizen unless we teach them. They don't just know these things. They're not born. They're not born knowing these things. The other thing that we need to do is that we need to involve our families. And again, it's the same thing where we have all of these computers and these devices, and it becomes overwhelming to everyone. It's hard for parents to keep track of all of these um, all of these new apps and these new devices, and it's hard for our parents to know, um, like, should we be keeping track on Google Classroom? Should we be keeping track on Canvas? Do we have Power School? What is our, where do we find the assignments? We used to make these jokes about where is the press any key, but now it's like, where do I look for the assignment? Where do I look for missing assignments? Where do I find the grades? Is it all in one place? Is it in 3 places? Am I going to get a remind message? Do I get a text message? Do I get an email? Who do I call? So we have the school related things, but then we also have these other things that I know, like I joke about that, like I feel like I'm a technology teacher, but I still feel there are apps that the kids are using that I'm not so sure about. I have my kids explain to me what's cool on TikTok now. Help me with the TikTok trend so I know, so I can speak your language. So I know if I feel this way, then how are the parents feeling? So we've got to involve the families in this discussion with this digital citizenship. There's not a line. The digital computer line, it's not a line now. The kids are connected all the time. They're connected at school and they're connected at home. And we need to have this partnership together, and we need to understand. And we also need to work together to understand that there's no more there's really we don't have an assumption of privacy anymore. We have these cameras with us all the time, and we need to work together to understand that we don't have that assumption of privacy. And how can the kids deal with it? How can we deal with that as family? And one of the things, if you could just go back real quick, one of the great resources for this is this Common Sense Media website. You can find all of this information on how do I deal with TikTok, and how do I deal with these things, and how can I set parental controls, and is this a website that's going to store my data well, and is it going to protect my child? So these are things that we definitely need to be addressing and working together with our parents as. And then another thing that I think we need to focus on is that we need to help our students see the positives and negatives of technology, because there are a lot of people now that talk about we miss the good old days, and we want to go back to the days when everyone played outside and they weren't always looking at their phones, and they weren't everything was not always connected, and everything wasn't so reliant on social media. But the thing is that we are past those days, and the more things become connected, and the more devices there are, we're not going to be at that point ever again. We're always going to be connected now. So we need to see the negatives, and we need to work with our students on and our families over the next 10 years of finding that digital media balance. What can we do so that we know when the time is to put the phone down, or the video game down, or the controller down? And what do we need to believe in? And so find all these memes about how do we have we wasted time over time. We've gone from the yo-yo being such a waste of time to video games, to the Tamagotchi, which I've heard those are making a comeback, which kind of worries me a little bit, to Facebook, and to now memes being our way that we waste time. So, so how is it that we are using what is it we are doing with our digital lives, and what will our digital lives look like 10 years from now when there are even more computers, and what effect is that having on our lives, on our mental health, and on our physical health too? Because as some people have noticed, that as our electronics have gotten smaller, um, our bodies have gotten bigger because we have not been required to do as much work. So how can we what can we do about this? And there is kind of a negative, sometimes there could be a negative connotation to this. Some reports are that more, and they've been saying this since I was young, but that really now that so many more jobs will be controlled by computers. And so we're going to have to change how we work. So we can look at this either negatively, or we can look in the next 10 years as technology, as a positive. We can think about, so these computers are getting smaller. What can they do for us? How can they become more beneficial? What can we learn? What more ways can we connect our students to other students around the world? What better learning experiences give our students? How can we help them become better citizens of their communities and of their world using technology? It's already possible for them to be able to connect themselves to peoples of other cultures, and from other countries, and so they can learn in a way that was never before possible. So that's incredibly exciting and a positive way to use technology. We're now getting Wi-Fi that is cheaper, Wi-Fi and internet that's cheaper and more accessible to even more people than ever before, which is another exciting thing. Um, the 3D printing that is happening now. Um, my students and I have just started our 3D printing unit, and we're kind of excited because 3D printing there for a while was just kind of a fad. People were printing one-off things in their homes. They were expensive. Now 3D printers are becoming less expensive, more pervasive again. But they're the amazing things that they're doing with them, like printing body parts. I even saw a thing where people are helping combat the homeless problem, because now we're 3D printing homes. So again, there's a positive thing that can happen with the technology, and that becomes not just becoming a digital citizen, but becoming a citizen of the world, using our technology for good and for something that's positive. There's lots of concern about about the food chain and food supply. How can we use our digital resources to become better citizens of the world? How can we teach our students to use these resources to help with world problems like energy, and like the food chain and food resources? Technology can help us become better farmers and become more productive farmers on less land, using less resources. And like I said, we're able to talk to people all around the world. When we had our unfortunate pandemic, I know a lot of us don't like the words asynchronous, and we don't like e-learning. Those words became very kind of bad words to us, but think about the opportunity that we had to stay connected with our students even through a time of difficulty. What How can we take that opportunity and use it to grow in the future if something else were to happen, or how can we expand on that in the future to help our students continue to learn, not just from the teachers in their regular classroom, but from a teacher who specializes in an area that they want to learn in. So there are all these possibilities for using technology in a positive way that we need to stress instead of talking about all the negatives of technology. We definitely need to help our students understand the positives as well. So again, here we are. We're looking at in the future and now. It's not just digital citizenship; it's citizenship. Period. How can we help our students become citizens of the physical world and citizens of the digital world, and be productive in both worlds? And so that's what I see happening in the next 10 years, helping making them productive and successful, and doing the best that we can in both worlds.
Jen, that was a fascinating ride. 15 minutes. You were able to take us 10 years in the future. I am so excited to see what happens. So, my son is 13, seventh grade, and I can only imagine what, even by the end of his high school career, so in 5 or 6 years, what the world will look like and what types of jobs there will be available to him that aren't even invented yet. There really is just a need for thoughtful, flexible thinking, nimble approaches to technology and problem solving and solution driving. And I think you have captured it beautifully.
And really, in that world, but the line between computers, the digital world, and our physical world is really, it's diminishing. And so we need to help our students be able to live in both of those worlds. And I think that's really important. And yeah, like, it's hard to imagine. It's exciting to imagine what's coming in the future and trying to get our kids ready for that.
Well,
But
thank you for doing your part as an intermediate 4th through 6th grade STEM teacher. You are absolutely teaching the next generation of humans who will inherit a lot of problems, but will be so much better at problem solving and thinking really innovatively and creatively because of the work that educators like you are doing. So, Jen, big thank you to you during DigCit week. And again, I would like to encourage everyone to share out what they're doing for DigCit week with the hashtags. And don't forget to tag us, tag Common Sense Ed and Keep IN Learning. We'd love to see what you're doing. What are your kids figuring out in your STEM classrooms, in your science and social studies classrooms? How are we taking the history and putting it into practice in the future? There's so much that could be done. And I appreciate everyone being here today and watching us recorded later, because remember, DigCit week is more than a week. Digital citizenship is good all year round. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on our next session where we talk more about student-centered resources. Thanks again, Jen.
thank you.